Hi everyone, my name is Randy and this is our first module, our introductory video, and taking a look at the role of local, state, and federal government in schools. So some personal information about me. My name is Randy Siri. I am 35 years old. I currently live in Houston, Texas. I have been married for 12 years. We have two children, a beautiful girl and a beautiful boy. They are 6 and 8, currently in third grade and first grade. We are originally from South Florida. So I grew up in Miami and then went to the University of Central Florida in Orlando. We moved back to South Florida when we were starting our family, and then moved out to Houston about 6 years ago when my husband had a work opportunity that we couldn't pass up. I have a master's degree in elementary education, and I have been in education now for 15 years. Seems like a very long time, but it's been about 15 years. I even started off as a substitute when I was still in college, so it's been a wide range of experience for me. So taking a look at some of that experience, I have taught first, third, fourth, and fifth grades in both private schools and in Title I public schools. I really enjoyed my time in public schools and only made the switch to private schools after I enrolled my daughter. It's kind of the best decision I ever made, honestly. I love having my children come to school with me, although that does come with its own unique set of challenges and things to overcome. A few years ago, I moved into administration as the director of curriculum and instruction, and then this is my second year as the assistant principal. And then a little fun fact about me, I am also currently employed with VIP Kids, which is an online platform that teaches English to children in China. And I've been doing that since July. So I actually have several students who live and reside in Wuhan and have been able to give me lots of tips and advice on kind of what we're going through. They haven't been in school for months, so they've been utilizing different resources for online learning. And since that is what my school is currently launching, my students have become a valuable resource for me as well. I really enjoy the teaching. It helps me stay connected to the classroom and the struggles that teachers face every day. And the most interesting part about it is that being oceans apart and still our struggles and our triumphs as educators and as parents really remain the same. I have parents who in China who will get on the computer and tell me about their child not following, and I struggle sometimes with keeping students engaged and all of the same things that we have to constantly worry about in the classroom. They're worrying about in China too. So it's just been a really unique experience, and I'm really grateful for the opportunity. My current position as assistant principal is in a small Catholic school. We serve students in pre-K 3 through 8th grade. We're only 6 years old. We've graduated 2 8th grade classes. We opened up pre-K 3 through 4th grade and then added 2 more grade levels, and I've graduated 2 of them as they've gotten older. And we are currently undergoing a massive attempt to get all of our students resources and materials and Chromebooks and everything out of their locker to them so that they can engage in distance learning as of Monday, because we were out for spring break when the decision was made to close our schools. So we kind of had no warning. So we have been organizing materials and just getting platforms set up and trying to do our best to engage our kiddos via technology. So been a unique learning experience for all of us. We're going to go ahead and get into the first module, which is discussing the role of local, state, and federal governments in schools. And this was actually a great refresher for me. I deal with a lot of this stuff on a regular basis, especially being a new school. So it was helpful to review some of this stuff that I hadn't really thought about in a couple years. So just to kind of go over a few key points, our local governments are responsible for providing funding, managing school choice, electing school boards, making decisions about school management, and then providing accountability for teachers and schools. Our state government has to set the graduation and enrollment requirements. So these can sometimes be unique to each state, which is sometimes a problem when children move out of state, as my family did. Establish school and colleges, provide accrediting agencies, things like that, develop curriculum, evaluate curriculum, and then authorizes the local districts to create their own bodies and to create their own districts, and then again provides funding. The federal government's main job is to ensure that every child has access to a free education and that that free education is a quality education. And so they also are responsible for accountability, and the states are held accountable to the federal government for some of the funding that they receive. By tying some of this together, many can argue that the federal has taken on a larger role in schools, when clearly their role is to make sure that we as states are doing what we're supposed to be doing. But it, some of those things are kind of key and important. So it's a good balance. So looking at the governing bodies, our local school districts are allowed and authorized to create independent school districts run by school board officials, and that some of them are elected, some of them are appointed. Currently in my district, we reside in Fair Independent School District, and our superintendent is Dr. Mark Henry. Our state governments are authorized to create their own governing bodies. In Texas, this would be the Texas Education Agency, or the TEA, and it is led by the Commissioner of Education, Mike Morath. Our federal government is run, our federal government body is the U.S. Department of Education, led by appointed cabinet member, Secretary of Education Betsy DeVos, and 15 cabinet agencies underneath her, which I thought was interesting that it was one of the smaller cabinet positions. Looking at our course components and the different levels of government, who has the most influence, I'm going to look at my notes just a little bit here, but looking at component 6.1, which basically says that people who complete this course are required to evaluate, develop, and implement management, communication technology, and school-led governance and operation systems. I really think this component is a local government component. This is what our local governments do, particularly since it talks very specifically about promoting the mission of our school. And that's something as a Catholic school we're always looking at. Like, are the decisions that we're making aligning with our mission and the mission of the church? So definitely, I think in this component, the local government has the most influence. The second component is about advocating for a data-informed and equitable resourcing plan that supports school improvement and student development. And while I believe the state and federal governments have a say, I really think it's the local and state governments that do the most amount of work to this. They're the ones that have to provide the evidence, provide the accountability, enact policies, maybe not always create the policies, but certainly enact those policies and carry them through, and then hold their teachers and their families and their students accountable. So I think that this is more a state level of influence. And then component 3 really speaks to being able to evaluate, communicate about, and implement laws, rights, and policies to promote student and adult success and well-being. And again, while the federal government does a lot of this policy making, or some of this policy making, I should say, and certainly lots of communicating, we always hear this in debates and things like that, it's really up to the state governments to do the work behind this and then report back to its constituents and the federal government. So I still think, while it's some basis in the federal government because we're creating policies, I still think it's the state governments that are truly the big influencers in this area. So tying it all together, and how does that work? I think the interaction and the collaboration between local, state, and federal governments help to support the academic success of every student regardless of race, ethnicity, special needs, religious affiliation. We have an obligation to society and to our children and to our future to make sure that everybody has access to public education. And then we also have an obligation to make sure that there's some choice. And that can be homeschooling, that can be charter schools, that can be private school. But we have to make sure that those schools are still being held accountable, those entities are still being held accountable, so that all of our students can be successful as they move forward in their lives. So I think that by working together, the 3 different levels of government really work to create expectations for families and educators and develop systems to hold schools accountable for those expectations. So while I appreciate and can respect people's thinking of letting each state do everything on their own, I do think there has to be some level of accountability and some level of just accountability. I can't think of a better word than that, to making sure that we are doing everything that we're doing, everything that we're capable of ensuring each student has an equal opportunity for success. Here are my references. Thank you so much for your time, and I am looking forward to hearing from each and every one of you. Bye-bye.